Welcome back. The topic is Metro Landfill, and we're talking to Councilperson THarper and community activist Wilmer Springs. And again, let me move back to the topic that we were talking about in reference to the landfill before we had our break, Ms. Springs, and that has to do with the alternatives. That is, assuming that the Bordeaux landfill will be closed. What are some of the alternatives, and what are we doing at this particular point to select alternatives to this?
Okay. The one alternative that the Bordeaux community is concerned about is finding a new landfill site. And right now, the site selection process has been stopped because of suits regarding the core drilling on some of the property owners' land. But before I talk about site selection, once more, I need to go back to 1987. In 1987, we have a communication where one of the Metro officials stated that it was urgent that a landfill site be found. This was June the 24th, 1987.
More than 2 years ago.
Yes. At that time, we obtained this information in 1988. When we read this and saw that it was so urgent, and we knew that there was no landfill site proposed, we knew that we were going to have a problem in our community. At this time, we were looking for closure plans. So we promptly began to talk about, we want the landfill closed. Our major goal, we don't want it extended at any cost. We want it closed. We found that there were no sites. And then, I guess, the council came up with, the Public Works came up with 29 sites.
29 different possibilities outside.
Possibilities. This was the first time. Well, it created an uproar because some of the sites that they selected were not even used.
Could not be used
as landfill sites. Like the Hermitage and School Land in Oakwood, I believe it is. But anyway, they took that bill away and they came back with 5 sites. These 5 sites are what we're working on right now. 2 of the sites have been core drill, right?
Core drill meaning that they've been tested to determine whether or not they would be feasible.
Yes.
As landfills.
So we still right now. So right now we're still with these sites in the court and no landfill site.
Okay, now.
And as it stands now, the judge has taken the issue that was presented before him under advisement, and I think that he's going to take possibly 10 days. Then after that time, if he rules in favor of metropolitan government, of course the testing will continue. And then our hope is that out of the testing, of course, 2 additional sites have been added to that. That's the area in Jolton, Tennessee, and of course those residents don't want it either. And if all of the sites test positive, then we could expect that we may face another lawsuit at that time, or some obstacle that would cause the landfill not to be expeditiously relocated.
In other words, we're saying that the people in the various communities are going to do everything that they possibly can to keep the landfill from.
And it's understandable. And of course, one of the arguments have been, and it's a legitimate argument, that is, number one, it's in a floodplain, and one that is right on the river. And of course, that's where Bordeaux is. And I've tried to explain to them that drinking water hasn't been that safe and that sanitary with the Bordeaux landfill, because we have copies here of the citation of metropolitan government just last year from the State Solid Waste Management Board.
Let's say something more about the environmental impact.
Well, the environmental impact is, number one, that the health care of the residents hasn't been considered. When we look at, I guess we call it morbidity out there, we are not really sure the number of people who died with respiratory problems as a direct result of that traffic to and from the landfill, those strong winds and the possibility of hispoplasmosis, all the things that surround a dump. And of course, when the city was cited, that was after a few inspections by the State Solid Waste Management or the State Health Department, and that was on the urging of the Bordeaux Action Group. And they have said, well, it was your responsibility to tell us, and we've not felt that. We've not felt it's our responsibility to tell a governing body what they're supposed to do. And we are very concerned with we talk about the environmental impact, we also talk about the economic impact. We have been just hard pressed to encourage businesses to locate in the area. We have 3 sites that recently were zoned for commercial development, for commercial planning and development for shopping centers. We can't find anchor tenants. They're not interested in locating in an area where there's a landfill. So I think you can understand the hue and cry of these other property owners, because they will suffer some of the same injustices that we have suffered. And we don't wish that on any community. It's just that we're tired of it, because we cannot go into our own community and make the kind of purchases for goods and services that we like that we can in other areas.
Okay, now what are some of the lesser alternatives outside of the 4 basic sites that the court is now considering?
Well, we could go back to the drawing board. If those 29 sites that were presented originally, they were presented to us through the Public Works Department under the direction of an engineering firm that they had hired to put some information into a computer and to come out with sites that were most likely to be feasible places for landfills. So I would say if they came up once, obviously there was a legitimate reason. I think we could start looking at some of those sites.
So what about the thermal transfer?
Well, I think if you've kept up with recent action by the Thermal Board and the Health Board, they have denied a request to extend the thermal plant. And there's an issue, at issue now is whether or not a thermal plant will be placed at Cockle Bend. And of course, if it's placed at Cockle Bend, that's a stone's throw from Bordeaux.
So it's essentially the same problem with the thermal plant that with
exactly
the metro
right.
landfill. Now, Ms. Spring, considering some of the things that we've said in reference to alternatives, during this 3rd segment, what we'd like to try to do is for you to give us some of the idea as to what are some of the alternatives. In addition, what we'd also like to do, Ms. Harper, is to talk about not only the alternatives, but what are some of the current problems dealing with refuse collection in the communities, that is backdoor pickup and et cetera. And we'll be back with you following this commercial break.